So, the new Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Disney Plus Marvel show recently just ended. We should talk about it. Hello, and my name is Christian McCrite. I am one of the hosts here on Hollywood Impact, and welcome to the show. If you are not familiar with us, please leave a like, leave comments, please subscribe. We're a fairly new channel, and we would love to have you on board for the stuff that we're getting ready to do from this year out. But anyways, we need to get going into, should you stream or skip Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? And right off the bat, I do want to say that generally speaking, if you love Spider-Man products, if you love Marvel products, you're probably going to like this show. I think one of the biggest things it has going for it is the nostalgia for Spider-Man and a lot of the villains and things for Spider-Man that we haven't seen as according to the MCU, but maybe are some like sort of callbacks to some of the older shows, but they're reinvented. There is Harry Osborn, there is a new sidekick named Nico, and it kind of does this really cool parallel thing where instead of Spider-Man meeting Tony Stark, what if instead in a different timeline or a different universe or whatever, that instead it is Norman Osborn? And I thought that was really cool. That was one of the things that hooked me into the show when I saw a clip of it on TikTok, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. I love Norman Osborn. I love the Green Goblin. And seeing the way the story plays out with him in the helping seat rather than Tony Stark is very cool. A lot of the characters are done very well. I think they really capture the good essence of what people like about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, like that kind of awkward, you actually believe he's a high score, that sort of thing. All that's really strong in here. The action is pretty strong. The one thing that I really had an issue with was I wasn't big on the animation style. Now that is completely subjective for the rest of you, but for me, I just didn't really care much for it. Now, I will say, I think that they did a really good job with the villains because they made them intimidating. Some of them they're like building, and some of these side characters that you normally wouldn't care about, they're actually building to be a larger part of this sort of timeline, this sort of universe, this sort of canon to one of Spider-Man's stories. And I think that is super interesting. And I was a little upset that they didn't really use like Tom Holland, not necessarily for the sake of using him, but I've really always wanted to see what he was doing before Civil War, like the pre-Spider-Man Homecoming, pre-Captain America Civil War. I really wanted to see what he was doing during that period of time because that would have been super cool. I think that would have been good potential, good grounds for this show. That's honestly what I thought it was going to be, but it's not that way. So if you're expecting that while going in, just put that out of your mind. It's not that. But it is really cool because it kind of brings that energy of a general good animated Spider-Man show, but it brings it into the MCU because it has its own canon, it has its own timeline, it has its own iterations of the characters that have more of the classic look than some of the ones we've seen in the MCU. And I really do like that. I also really love Spider-Man's journey, I love Peter Parker's journey to kind of understanding, with great power comes great responsibility, that whole shtick that he's done a bajillion times over. His particular journey is, in some cases, a little bit darker than some of the other iterations of Spider-Man that I've seen, and I really like that. There's a lot of wacko stuff in here. Some of the villains are definitely sort of wacko, but I think they do a great job in making sure that it still is centered around his character and his development, as well as his characterization and chemistry with his friends and the adults around him in the room that are slowly building up pieces to a larger story. So I think that they will probably continue this. They have to. They ended on a big cliffhanger. But for those of you who like Marvel and Spider-Man things, you're going to like it. The only issues I had with it, other than the animation style, which is completely subjective and just a nitpick of mine, is the first couple episodes didn't really hook me. I think they tried to lean too much into, and this is kind of ironic, they tried to lean too much into making it mirror Tom Holland's sort of universe without making it like different. Like how, okay, so like Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, you have different canons and timelines of Spider-Men and Spider-Women, and their stories are similar. They have similar story beats, but they're told in different ways. And I think this one it does have its pure differences, but I think some of it tries to connect you to Tom Holland's universe a little bit too much. And because of that, because it's not Tom Holland, it's somehow a little off-putting, like a little disappointing. Like it doesn't seem to have enough of its own personality other than, oh, a couple characters have changed and there's like this villain and this guy appears. And other than that, like the Aunt May is basically the same, the Spider-Man's basically the same. I didn't really much care for that, but overall I feel like it uses its time wisely. And I feel like a lot of the character arcs and the development that most of these characters get is worth it, and I found myself pretty intrigued getting like closer to the end of it. So it may not completely hook you at first, but I would say give it a second and you might find yourself really enjoying this. So when it comes to being able to stream this or skip it, for most people I would say stream it. And even if you're, kind of on the downtrodden, oh, well, Marvel's not been as good as it's usually, I still think this is a good story to watch, even though it is not current MCU sacred timeline. There's a chance that maybe Spider-Man will encounter this Spider-Man at some point or another. Who knows? Or maybe Into the Spider-Verse the Into the Spider-Verse universe might bring this guy in. Who knows? But the point is, it's still pretty fun. It's still pretty good, and it is family friendly. So keep that in mind. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to give us support. We would really, really appreciate it. We have a lot of things we want to do this year. But of course, you all have a great one.